There we go. Welcome in, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Well Dressed Brand TV show. I'm your host, Toy Sweeney. I have been looking forward to this conversation for such a long time. I cannot wait because you guys know how much I love to talk about standing in your power. And as we are concluding the Style Identity series, what better way to talk about power, and what a different way than to bring in the one and only Makeda Alleyne. Welcome to the Well Dressed Brand TV show.
Thank you, Toy. So excited to be here and with your audience today.
You are a sought after speaker. I mean, I've been low key stalking you on LinkedIn for quite some time. I love your content. I think that you are just stunning inside and out. And I just so glad that you
Oh,
said
thank you.
yes. You are a coach, a trainer, that's really encouraging us to be confident, courageous, and brilliant. We really are after that transformation today that you are doing for so many companies and women across the globe. With nearly 20 years
Mm.
of experience in training and development industry, you're designing these solutions for our lives and for our business. And you've been doing that as the founder and director of Makeda Alleyne Programs. Once again, thank you so much for joining us today. I cannot wait to get started on this conversation.
Thank you, Toy.
I
I
love
love
it.
that introduction.
Well, I mean, listen, I got to give you your flowers because I've been like, from the moment I saw you, probably about 2 years ago on LinkedIn, I was like, who
Mm.
is this woman? And God, she is gorgeous. And oh my goodness, the content, I was like, yes, 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 yes. I'm always reading it and I'm like, yes, yes. I'm like, that is so
Finger
true.
snaps. Yeah.
Right, it's always on point. And so I was thinking about concluding the Power series. I was just like, I have got to have Makeda on because we need to talk about the power of being unstoppable. And so my very first question to you is, with your background in training and development, how has that prepared you to teach women to stand in their power?
How's my background in training and development prepared? I think my background in training and development, like you said, is almost 20 years. And we worked with women as well as other professionals across the globe to a lot of it was leadership development. So what we learned is that professional women, regardless of what role they might have, sometimes they might be in a position that is senior on the outside. A lot
Mm,
of them sometimes struggle with things internally.
yeah,
And most of the times, people don't bring that side of themselves to work,
yeah,
particularly if you're head of department or you're a VP or you're in the C suite. You have to feel as if you have to show up and put on a bit of a show in order to be respected and viewed a certain way at work. So what I kind of deal with is getting to the heart and the soul of the individual and dealing with the things that maybe they don't want to talk about with people at work. Maybe they
mm,
don't even want to talk about it with people in their family, but the things that they struggle with secretly within their brains. I'm talking about the thoughts that run through their heads. So that's
yeah.
kind of how the link is between training and development and the work that I do with professional women.
I love that because it really felt fits well into the Well Dressed Brand Tribe, because we talk a lot about, personal branding really is about you bringing your whole self. And so,
Mm.
when you said that, it made me think of two things. It was like, one, Carla Harris is like, the greatest example of, this being this mogul and this woman of that stands in her power on like Wall Street, and within that, I think, financial community. And she tells
Mhm.
this story about her being like, this like jazz singer. And so that was a part of herself that she wasn't bringing in to, these multi-million dollar businesses, and even her own career. And when she started to do that, she showed up different. The second thing that I heard you saying is that you are a safe space. You know, when
Mhm.
when you're helping these leaders, you're becoming a safe space, because I know that I've experienced that in a corporate environment and as a leader, that I don't really have anyone at work that I feel safe saying like, these are some things that I'm dealing with at home. Rather it's a
Mhm.
spouse that doesn't support you, or a teenager that's lost her mind. And all of these things impact how you show up, and they're going to impact, the way that you're going to tell us about, of course, how we can become unstoppable. So that leads me to my second question. How do we stop living in the past and develop what you call this hell yeah confidence? Like, how do we do that?
For me, developing a hell yeah confidence, firstly, as you said, it's not about being held back by things that happened in the past. Very often, what can happen is certain things can happen to us in our lives, whether it's growing up, whether it's in our early adult years or early years in our career, and we use that experience to be the basis of what we think that we're capable of achieving, or
Mm,
we use that as that experience as the basis of what we think is possible for us, or what we think we are deserving of. And the reality is, our past doesn't determine our future. We get to decide what our future looks like.
yes.
So, developing the hell yeah confidence is all about, I talk about three beliefs. I call them the three golden beliefs. So, belief in what's possible for you, because
Mm,
so often we don't
mhm.
want to fight for our fairy tale. We think that our
Yes.
dreams are too big. So we need to get back to actually believing the life and the career that we want for ourselves is actually possible. So that's the first of the golden beliefs: belief in what's possible for you, belief in what you're capable of. So now we're talking about your abilities. So having that strong belief in what you're able to accomplish, that's the second golden belief. And the third one is belief in what you deserve. So you need to have a real grounded sense of your worthiness and recognize that you don't have to fight in order to be worthy, but you're deserving exactly as you are. So those are the three kind of beliefs that I work with my clients on: belief in what's possible for them, belief in what they're capable of, and belief in what they
Mm.
deserve.
Oh my gosh, that is so good. I was thinking about this morning as I was prepping for this conversation. I have a friend whose 10-year-old daughter had an opportunity to be on a really big movie set yesterday with some like
Okay.
A-list celebrities, and we were talking about like how was the day, how did she do, and she said to me, she said this girl is tenacious, and she was telling me about how there was this part where the producer was like, okay, because there was like 100 kids there, right? And she's like,
Mhm.
if you were in scene X, Y, and Z and you wore a blah blah blah, like she just, it was too many kids, so she didn't know who was in what scenes. And she said that, my friend said, her daughter looked at her and said, I'm going up there. Like she didn't care if she was in the scene or not. Like she went up there, and they ended up keeping those kids from scene to scene to scene and dismissing everybody else. And so when you talk about fighting for the fairy tale, oh, and I said to her,
Mhm.
at some point we were all that little girl, like hopefully, right? And then as we get older and life and circumstances start to kind of beat, that out of us, we no longer are fighting for that fairy tale. We're no longer
Mhm.
maybe so conscious about what we can achieve, and then we now have a completely different belief system, you know, and what's possible. So I just really like that because I feel like you need to get some fight for your fairy tale t-shirts. You know? I'm like, I need a whole
Noted.
mug, Makeda, that's like, I'm fighting for my fairy tale. Like, I love that. I love that, just blew my mind. I'm like, yes. Now I have like a whole marketing campaign in my head about how we
We'll
all
talk
need to,
offline. We'll talk offline.
like how we need to fight for our fairy tale, because I think that, and I hear you saying too that over time, it kind of gets pushed out, and then you start to feel trapped in your career and sometimes in relationships. So I love those three beliefs. Thank you so much for that. What
Can I just say,
addition,
Toy,
go ahead.
quickly?
No,
Because
please.
what you said is so interesting when you talked about your friend's daughter. Because I think that we are raised and we grow up like as children, we're naturally curious, we're naturally courageous, we're naturally brave. I feel like if that comes to us naturally. And oftentimes when we get older, when we're talking about, okay, what do I have to do to become my best self, to become unstoppable, to become confident and courageous, we often think about picking up something else that we need to add to who we already are
Mm,
in order to become that person. But so
yes.
often what we actually need to do is to strip away things that society have labeled us with, that we've been carrying with us from a very young age, that have caused us to doubt ourselves or to have caused us to operate from a place of fear. I feel as if it's getting back to the root of who we actually are, as opposed to
Yes.
feeling as if we have to pick up something else to become worthy or to become deserving or to become confident or unstoppable or whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm. It's I immediately thought of oh gosh, I have the character's name, but for whatever reason, come on, brain, the name of the movie is escaping me. The Wizard of Oz. There you go. Thank you, brain.
All right.
You know, when, Glinda the Good Witch is like everything that you want is inside of you. Because now you got my
Mm,
mind going about the fairy tale. But it's like everything about you, everything that you need is inside of you. And Sally Hogshead talks about unlearning boring. And I think that,
mm,
there's so many things that you have to unlearn. And when you are carrying the things that you haven't unlearned, when you are carrying the things that you don't believe are possible, as you were saying, then the way that that impacts your personal brand and the way that you show up, there's no way if you're carrying all of this stuff, you're going to be able to fly, right? Toni Morrison says, in order for
100%.
you to fly, you got to get rid of the things that are holding you down. And so that's why I love all the things that we're talking about so far, because that is it. You are so right. Go back
Mm,
to the things, my friend Natalie Gregg, who's a friend of the show, always talks about going back to that little thing. And I believe this, who you are at like 5 years old and those games that you
mhm,
were playing, like that usually gives a little bit of like look into your future, you know. And coincidentally, when I was talking to the same little girl, her name's Addison, and who was like doing the movie set, I was talking to her the other day, and I said, how's, she's got the lead in her school play, like it all is starting to make sense. And I said to her, well, when you make it big, what are you going to do? Or she said to me, she goes, Miss Toy, when I make it big, I'm taking me, you, and mommy to Europe. And she said, the first thing that we're going to do is we're gonna stop by my apartment in New York City. And then we're gonna take a flight to Europe, and we're gonna go shopping, and we're gonna leave the boys behind. I mean, this is like her life at 10 years old. And we all
mm,
know that that is not impossible, right?
mhm,
And
mhm,
so we know that that's not possible, because I know people who are living that life right now, And
mm,
so I love that entire idea about, being able to, get those belief systems in check, fight for that fairy tale. And her mom said, I don't want this to change. She's doing everything that she can to preserve that in her so that she doesn't lose it, because she's like, when life hits, she's gonna need that grit. And I love that. I love that. What additional steps can we take to become our the most unstoppable versions of ourselves?
um, I'd say to become the most unstoppable version of yourself, well, to break it right down, I'd say you need two things. So you need to work on your mindset and you
Mm,
need to work on your actions. So if
yes.
we look at mindset first, the first thing I would suggest would be to start challenging negative thinking. Start challenging negative thoughts. So often we experience fear and self doubt, and there's this barrage of negative thoughts in our heads, this kind of like constant loop of things like, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not experienced enough, or what if I make a mistake? What if I end up worse off? What if I jump straight out of the frying pan into the fire? And
Right.
those types of thoughts, really cause us to be stuck and cause us to be paralyzed with fear and cause us not to take action and cause us essentially to not go after our dreams. So
Yeah.
I always say question the validity of
Mm,
your fears and doubts. Question the validity of your fears and doubts. And by that I mean, are these things that you're thinking, are they based on facts or feelings? Are
yes.
they based on facts or are they based on assumptions? Because
Mm-hmm.
what we can do very often is to come up with a story about who we are that
Yeah.
isn't based on any facts, that isn't based on any evidence. And we take that story with us and we run with it through our childhood, through our teen years, into our early careers, into our current careers. And we
Mm-hmm.
run with it and it impacts how we show up. And if you were to take a moment to question it, to question the story of, if I use myself as an example, I had a story of, I'm not smart enough. Now,
Mm.
anyone who knows me academically and knows all of these scholarships that I've got and the master's degree that I have would know that that makes zero sense.
Right.
Factually, it makes
Right.
no sense. But that was a story that started when I was like in primary school, about, 6, 7 years old. And I just carried that with me. And you could just imagine how someone who thinks that they're not smart enough, how that could impact how they're showing up at work. Maybe they're
Mm-hmm.
overworking to try to prove themselves. Maybe they have imposter syndrome. So I always say to challenge the thoughts that you have and challenge the fears that you have to see if there's any validity behind them. And also, what you can do, which is extremely powerful, is to replace those thoughts which aren't serving you with empowering ones. And empowering thoughts
Mm-hmm.
or beliefs are those thoughts and beliefs that spur you on towards your goal, that spur you on towards action, that spur you on towards the vision that you have for your life. So that's the first thing I would say: challenge negative thinking. And the second thing, as I mentioned, is around action. So we can become so paralyzed with fear,
Yeah.
so paralyzed with fear that we shut down, we get
Mm-hmm.
stuck, and we don't take any action. And I always say that inaction is a breeding ground for fear and doubt. Inaction is
Mm.
a breeding ground for fear and doubt, because when you're in inaction, it reinforces the negative thoughts that you have about yourself and your situation, because you're not doing anything, you're just sitting in
Right.
it. So the solution is to get into action. Act despite the fear. Action is the antidote to fear. So you need to get moving. And when people are kind of stuck and they are struggling with fears, whatever fear is, fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of
Mm-hmm.
criticism, fear of judgment, whatever your personal brand of fear is,
Yeah.
when I talk about taking action, it can be easy to think, oh, it needs to be this big thing that I need to do. And that can become very overwhelming, and it can
Yeah.
become so overwhelming that you don't want to take any action at all, because that's too big a jump. So when I talk about taking action, it can be small, manageable steps,
Yeah.
towards your goal, because those small steps, they're going to add up to big steps. So your action doesn't have to be, this huge thing. And also, your action doesn't have to be perfect. So you can remove the pressure of it being perfect. You can take small, imperfect steps
Yeah.
towards your goal. And each step that you take, each action taken, it builds confidence and it diminishes your doubt and fear.
I love that. And I think that too, when as you were talking about that, I was thinking about a lot of that is also like an antidote for anxiety. It's just that
Mm-hmm.
when you get stuck creatively, like maybe you're working on your book, or maybe you're just that worry and that fear starts taking, you're saying take action. I love that because sometimes it's just going for a walk. Just some it's it's what's happening for you mentally and physically when you're just getting your body moving. And that's why it's so important for us to just get our bodies moving every day, because again,
Mm-hmm.
this is we're talking about a holistic approach. Rather you're talking about, again, your business or your career, it's all going to involve your whole self. So I love, 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 love that. And so, all right, in closing, if we had to, if we're sitting there and we're just like, okay, I have a growth mindset, I'm going to,
Mm-hmm.
revisit all of these things to be, have a little bit more grit, because I think that that's a bit part of it too. I think that resilience is also a part of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think, before I even ask you that question, what are your thoughts on just self-compassion? Because I feel like that is such a big part of it. We have to, I know for myself, and I struggled with the same self-doubt that you did about the same thing, actually.
All
Just like
right.
I'm not smart enough, right? And so 2 years ago, I'll tell you that it was about 2 years ago, I decided, I was no longer struggling with that, but I had a whole list of other things that I was really struggling with. And so what I decided to do was, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and get back into therapy. And I'm also going to get a food coach, because I was just like, whatever it is that I'm dealing with, it's also like why I'm emotionally eating. And I know that it's
Mm-hmm.
holding, right? And it's holding me back in my business. I know this. And so I did that. And one of the things that came out of that conversation, as we unpacked so many things that you just talked about, the core
Mm-hmm.
beliefs, the fear, like any of those things, I remember my therapist like, girl, you have got to learn to show yourself some grace. And I know that I can't be the only one. So where do you think that self compassion fits into this idea of being unstoppable.
I think it's such a huge part of it as well. We can become, and I'm going to say particularly as women, we can be so hard on ourselves and put
Mhm.
so much pressure on ourselves to perform and to perform in a particular way. And don't even get me started on how we start comparing ourselves to other people. That's just a whole other story and a whole other kind of like can of worms, essentially.
Right.
But I think being able to show yourself self compassion and show yourself grace essentially throughout the process. Because if you're going through a transformation or evolution from, let's say, from unsure to unstoppable, there are going to be bumps along the way. There are going to be things that you are trying that you haven't tried before. There are going to be emotions that you're releasing that you haven't released before. You're going to be going outside of your comfort zone in ways that you haven't done before. So you really need to show yourself grace as you go through the process and recognize that you're trying something new, and
Yeah.
give yourself permission to fail, permission to get it wrong, permission to stumble. And I always say to treat yourself like you treat your best friend. If it
Yeah.
was your best friend, you wouldn't like get on their case about it. You would be very kind, you'd be very compassionate towards them. And don't you think that you're also deserving of that same level of compassion that you would give to your best friend?
Mm. Yeah. I love that. And it's true. It is absolutely true. And I think that too, one of the things that I was thinking about while you were saying that is just kind of this idea of who do you need to become? You know, I did a
Mm-hmm.
post the other day that was all about reimagining, yourself in the stage of life that you're in or whatever it is. But I right now I'm in this mode and this mindset of as you are envisioning the fairy tale, right? Because visual vi- I can speak today. Visualization is such a huge part of it as well. And so I think that we need to ask ourselves when you're looking at the life that you want to carve out and create for yourself, right? And I love that, we get to decide. And so, what does that look like when you're envisioning yourself at your highest moments, and you're
Mm-hmm.
showing yourself compassion and you know, and you're a person now that, as you said, going through the steps, you're like, okay, so I growth mindset, check, letting go of fear, check, going through all these things. Okay, when this person in my head that I want to become, what does she look like? How does her mind work?
Mm-hmm.
What does she
Mm-hmm.
eat? You know what I mean? Like, where does she live? Is
Mm-hmm.
she in Barbados? Maybe.
She
Is
just
she
might be.
Mhm.
she just might be in live she just might live in Barbados. She might live in France, whatever. And so I love that idea of just who do you need to become in order to accomplish those things. And I think that you've given us the answer, to that question. And so I think that, this is Friday, you guys. I want you to think about that this weekend and really write down and visualize who do you need to become so that you can chase that fairy tale properly. Final question in closing. If you had to just give us one thing that we can do this weekend, or as we're going through the week and the month, for those who are watching this in the afterplay, like, just give me the one thing to be able to harness the greatness and become unstoppable within. What's the one thing we can do today? I know you got to think about
I'm
that.
going to take it back and say the one thing, which is actually, no, I'll say this. I would think about your vision.
Mm.
So many people, I'm going to go out there and say most people do not have a vision for their lives.
Oof.
Most people do not have a vision for their lives. They might have a vision for their career, but they
Yeah.
don't have a vision for their lives. And having a vision for your life is so important because
Yeah.
it's what compels you to take action. It is what propels you out of fear, out of self doubt, out of your current situation. So when I'm talking about being unstoppable, the reason I say start with your vision is that you need something to pull you out of your situation. So
Yeah.
what is it that you're fighting for? As I said, fight for your fairy tale. And if you're struggling with creating a vision, then I think that it raises a number of questions. Because so often what can happen is we don't want to own up to or claim the life that we want. We feel as if we might be dreaming too big. But if you can't even claim it, if you can't even claim your
Yes.
vision, then how can you actually achieve it? if you're not even bold enough to say, this is actually what I want my life to look like. So
Right.
if you want to be unstoppable, unstoppable towards to what means, unstoppable to what extent, start
Yeah.
with your vision. This is what I'm working towards, and that's why I need to. Then you get into changing your actions and changing your mindset in order to actually achieve it. So I say start with your vision. Have a think about what you want your life to look like, what kind of legacy you want to leave, why is it important to you. If you were 90 years old and you had a party for yourself, with your friends and family, what would you be most proud of?
Ooh.
Really start thinking about the vision for your life.
Oh, I love that. I
When I
love that.
work with my clients, yeah, I'm just saying when I work with my clients, before we get into all of the mindset, all of the owning your brilliance, the confidence, your limiting beliefs, we always start with your vision. And it's sometimes can be a little bit challenging because it's just like, oh, I don't think it's bold enough. I don't think it's, I think it's too small essentially. So it's
Yeah.
about encouraging you to actually don't be scared or don't kind of play small, but actually claim what it is that you want your life to look like. So I always start with vision of my clients.
I think that you have to. You're so right. Like, write down the vision, make it plain, do a
Make
vision
it
board, whatever,
plain.
right? And like, do a vision board if that's going to help. And I just think that because it's a great start. And then, as you said, when you start unpacking all the things that and that are holding you back from having that life that you want, I do think that it opens up an entire gateway and a whole new world you can build for yourself, and get you into that place where you are really harnessing the power of being unstoppable. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm still so completely jealous that I have to be in New York and you get to be in Barbados. That's the last time I'm going to mention it. I got to
I
start
won't gloat.
envisioning a new vision now.
Add it to your vision, yeah.
I'll add it to my vision board. Go and visit Marqueta in Barbados. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for dropping these gems. I knew that you were going to be an exceptional guest. So thank you so much for being a part of the Well Dressed Brand family now and helping us to become unstoppable. All right, you guys, have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you for